ちゃった。
Hello, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Here in this dreadful world of unbalance, for the next few minutes, your eyes will leave your body, and your mind will be consumed with visions of magnificent monsters. Join us as we review the excellent Monster of the Week series, Ultra Q. Today's subject features stories of giant monsters, children turning into monsters, psychic ghosts, enemies from space, mutant gorillas hijacking trains, killer plants, sea monsters, balloon monsters, spiders, bigger spiders, little people, big people, and even more. What you will soon see is a spectacular but overlooked part of sci-fi entertainment history. A part that started many centerpiece tropes in Japanese fantasy fiction, and one that certainly deserves a wider audience. Join us as we delve into the mysterious world of Ultra Q. Premiering in the mid-1960s and produced by the special effects gurus behind the Godzilla films, Tsuburaya Productions, Ultra Q is the Japanese answer to the cornerstone American TV anthology series of the 50s and 60s, such as Tales of Tomorrow, One Step Beyond, The Outer Limits, and the timeless Twilight Zone. However, while Ultra Q can be considered influenced and enabled by these American series, Ultra Q exists in a dimension entirely of its own. Its contrast is defined by its fearless use of special effects, experimental filmmaking, largely cheerful and zany plots, a static cast of characters, and of course, giant monsters. That's not to say that the other series didn't have monsters, small, big, and weird. Rather, Ultra Q is notably defined by its use of show creator Eiji Tsuburaya's iconic giant rubber monsters, or Daikaiju, which appear in the majority of the series' 28 episodes. Sharp-eyed viewers will be able to see monsters in the show that were borrowed from Toho's Godzilla movies, for instance. Further, some of Ultra Q's monsters became more popular than the show itself, going on to appear in other giant monster series and movies for decades to come via the Japanese pop culture monolith that is Ultraman. Indeed, while relatively unknown, Ultra Q is the direct precursor to the much more popular Ultraman series. It's important to note that Ultraman itself was created because audiences demanded more and more of the giant monsters that Ultra Q featured. Ultraman is of course the TV series that, along with Godzilla in theaters, cemented the kaiju boom of the 60s and 70s in Japanese culture, something that is still ongoing to the present day. The cultural milestone of giant monsters is one of the biggest things that comes to mind with the topic of Japanese entertainment. However, it would not have existed without the piloting experimentation of Ultra Q. While Ultra Q is not as recognized internationally as Ultraman, if at all, Ultra Q is a treasured part of Japanese culture for all of its aforementioned strengths and trailblazing ways. It's for all of these reasons and many more that I want to show this series to you, and I could say it is a great investment of your time if you're looking for a solid televised sci-fi and fantasy series. In this video, I will be focusing on my favorite episode of Ultra Q, the standout, spacey, and weird bit of magic titled Challenge from the Year 2020. If you have not seen the episode and wish to avoid spoilers, you may want to check it out before watching the rest of this video. The episode starts with the Japanese Self-Defense Force tracking a strange object on their radar. On duty is Lieutenant Colonel Amano, who looks on as events unfold. The strange reading turns out to be a UFO, and jets are scrambled to intercept the possible threat. As Officer Amano and staff look on the radar screen, the jets are dispatched by the mysterious glowing craft. Seemingly obliterated, shocked by the events, Amano debriefs his senior staff on his UFO story. With typical Blue Book skepticism, the staff finds his assertions preposterous, and Amano is left to look elsewhere on his own for help in finding out what happened to his pilots. Meanwhile, many people are disappearing from various locations in Japan. It seems a strange liquid is seeking out and causing people to vanish with no rhyme nor reason. This liquid is photographed in the act of sliming away a model by a daily news reporter, Yuriko. Shocked, she attempts to go to her boss with the scoop, but is turned away, much like Officer Amano in his UFO story. She quickly connects the dots about the UFO story and the disappearances and heads to the local airport. There, she pleads her and Amano's case to her flying friends, June and Ippei, who have helped her before when monstrous events have occurred. Even with all of the evidence of something strange going on, June is dubious about a connection. Ippei, however, is eager to assist, noticing the events are very similar to a sci-fi novel he has read, The Year 2020 Challenge. After reviewing the evidence, June agrees to help Officer Amano. The two head out to scout the location where the jets disappeared. Finding no debris, they decide to head back, dejected. Suddenly, they become victim themselves to the mystery as the slime appears in the back of the plane and whisks June away, leaving Amano alone to guide the plane back to safety. Back on land, more disappearances are happening. Amano, Yuriko, and the chief of the newspaper she works at review the evidence and decide that the slime is behind the disappearances. They agree that it must be a willful evil, and that it seems to be trying to eliminate all witnesses of its actions. With the conspiracy pegged down and danger afoot, the chief seeks police assistance, and they send Utagawa to guard Yuriko. Yuriko isn't convinced the old man can help. Meanwhile, Ippei becomes convinced that real life is imitating fiction, as events match up more and more with the story in the novel Challenge from the year 2020. Ippei reveals to Yuriko that the author of the book, Professor Kanda, stated the book was not fiction, but actually the written record of a conversation he had made with alien life during a scientific experiment involving X-channel light waves. Ippei warns that the liquid is a telepathically guided tool of the aliens, called Chimerians, and that their slime has a weakness to fire. As if on cue, the liquid seeps through the phone booth and attempts to eat Yuriko. Before she could be slimed, Utagawa saves her and throws a cigarette on the slime, evaporating it. How did Utagawa know to do this? He reveals that he knew Professor Kanda, and that indeed the stories may all be true. If they are, aliens are stealing human life to fuel their quest for immortality, and they're using telepathic slime to body snatch. If the slime is near, an alien must also be near. Utagawa's strange alien sensor goes off. Shocked, Yuriko and Utagawa see the deformed being, a Chimerian. The sinister Slimer slips away into the night, cackling madly. Can Yuriko, Utagawa, Lieutenant Colonel Amano, and Ippei stop the aliens? Who else will be caught by the Chimerians? Can June or anyone be saved? All of these things are revealed in the stunning last half of Ultra Q's The Year 2020 Challenge. I'll leave it unsaid and give a spoiler warning before I go into the ending of what makes this episode and the series Ultra Q so great. So the episode's final act has Yuriko being snatched, while Amano and Ippei discover the professor's home and the transmitter needed to warn off the Chimerians. The two rush off to install the transmitter atop Tokyo Tower, and Yuriko awakens in a strange carnival, where June beckons her to come closer. Utagawa, the bumbling policeman, shows up with a posse of cops, and before they can warn Yuriko, she is horrified to see June turn into the Chimerian. Outnumbered, the alien tries to escape up the carnival's Ferris wheel. Utagawa blindly shoots at the Chimerian in a great scene, nailing it in one and causing it to fall to a likely death. Now, I have to say, I love the comedic touches in this episode. Utagawa is he's hilarious in his ineptitude. I love the way he closes his eyes and shoots and hopes to hit the alien, and it just works for him. It's beautiful. Despite the fall, though, Chimurajin persists, growing into a monster that towers over the carnival, Jazz handing it as it shrugs off small arms fire and causes havoc. Finally, the nifty X-channel lightwave emitter installed by Amano and Ippei on Tokyo Tower does its thing and zaps the Chimerian into finality, dying or maybe just injured. The Chimerian covers itself in its own telepathic goo, and disappears. With a puff of smoke, the stolen humans reappear on the spinning teacups ride, unconscious but seemingly unharmed. June and Yuriko reunite briefly. A happy ending, or the beginning of a new nightmare? The answer is challenging. All of these elements perfectly highlight how zany, out there, and yet human Ultra Q was as a series. Ultra Q was the fabled fifth dimension where the Japanese mind of 1966 went when it dreamed. A fantastic playground of ideas centered around the creatures that inhabited it. A reflection of the thoughts and experiences of the people who came home to watch it weekly, likely after spending their days living and working in what was by then the second biggest, and still growing, economy on Earth. Indeed, Japan was living it big, and its entertainment and monsters had reached new heights to match. The phantasmagoric power of the series is perfectly captured and slowly released in greater and greater amounts across the 25 minutes of this single episode in particular. My favorite, and I want to cover the reasons why in specific now. Clearly, this show is just wild. Let's look at all the crazy stuff we have in this episode alone. UFOs, a staple of the weird 60s, where it really felt like Earth was being observed, visited, and even abducted by strangers from beyond the stars. We have slime, another fun throwback to a time when blobs abounded and monsters oozed this stuff. Weird alien monsters. The Chimerian is certainly one of the weirdest looking aliens in entertainment at that time. I am utterly impressed by its asymmetrical design, delighted by its evil lab. It's the Matango lab, by the way. Impressed by its size-changing abilities, and saddened that it seems overlooked now, to the point of being unknown outside of Japan. This is a Godzilla-level villain with a strangeness so neat that it should ensure a universal appeal, yet it doesn't. How sad. Challenge also features great special FX work, with some scenes that are impressive even today, and it makes you wonder how they achieved them at some parts. I love the way the milk floats in this scene. The slime effects are clearly a nod to the Blob, and they're campy fun at its best. The episode also features the first televised occurrence of what would become a staple of all Ultra series and many other Japanese franchises, the Kyodai Hero, or Giant Hero, which became a genre of tokusatsu shows in Japan. Essentially, it's a normal-sized person growing into a giant, building-smashing and day-saving humanoid. While most people consider Ultraman to be the first series with this dynamic, Ultra Q has the same thing happening. The only difference being, it's an arguable villain doing the size changing versus a hero. However, I don't think the distinction matters. In my book, Ultra Q is the first to achieve the defining element to the rest of the Ultra series, size changing. It should also be noted that Kamurojin's actor is Ben Furuya, who went on to play Ultraman during the giant monster fight scenes of the next series, Ultraman. Funnily enough, Officer Amano and Yuriko's actors also were part of the main characters in Ultraman. This is actually one of the, sorry for the pun, big takeaways of the episode. It's essentially a blueprint for Ultraman, and not by technicality or accident. You have aliens causing mischief, a phantom of regular size taking control of the vertical and growing into a bigger humanoid beast. Even the same actors are involved. Indeed, as my research showed me, the episode was written by Tetsuo Kinjo, who is considered the father of Ultraman. Eiji Tsuburaya, the effects god of classic Godzilla and head producer for Ultra Q, trusted Kinjo, who was only in his late 20s, to write most of Ultra Q's outline. In fact, Kinjo was largely responsible for Ultra Q. He created the characters, the overall ideas of the series, and also wrote some of my favorite episodes. With that understood, it's pretty clear to see that he was preparing for the future with challenges, ideas, and plot elements. It all makes sense, and he went on to become the head writer for Ultraman. This episode is the start of his immortality in the kaiju and tokusatsu genre, in my opinion, and I have developed a great respect for him as I research these facts. To be honest, as much as I like Ultraman, and I have since I was a child, I personally prefer Ultra Q now that I've seen it. The central theme and original title of Ultra Q was Unbalance. Each episode focused on everyday life being turned on one of its infinitely indiscernible sides, much like the Twilight Zone or Outer Limits did for American audiences. Ultra Q is much more relatable to me as I have aged, featuring stories about characters wishing to escape the monotony of adult life,
電話のないところ、締め切りのないところ、交通地獄のないところ。
借金取りのいないところ。
それならバーのないところね。
ごちゃごちゃ人間なんか全然いないところ。
要するに、この息の詰まりそうな世の中よ。さようならだわ。
よーし。こうなりゃ月だろうが星だろうが突っ走るぞ。
or being alienated by life and rules, showing the frustrations of being your own strange self in a world of graying constraint, of being certain that something wasn't right in the world and doing something about it, even if others shamed you or just didn't understand, of dreaming and continuing to hope and find joy and wonder, despite what anyone does to you or whatever comes your way. That's Ultra Q for me. Modern viewers are also extremely lucky to have had the entirety of the original Ultra Q series itself colorized in 2011. If you see the series, I highly recommend the Natural Color Ultra Q Blu-ray series box set. There's also a colorized DVD set of the entire series available, fully translated, in America on Amazon and other retailers. I myself was only able to view Ultra Q for many years untranslated and in awful quality, as you can see above here. I was only really allowed to enjoy the series after seeing the colorized version, which really does turn the series into something visually gorgeous. I was so impressed by this. So, while it may not have grown to the heights of the Ultra series that came after it, Ultra Q is still a giant of the kaiju legacy in Japan, and a series that is worth any sci-fi or 60 TV fan's time. We are fortunate to have it all preserved and enhanced in eye-popping color today, so you really have no excuse to not sit back and let your eyes leave your head for the show you're about to receive. You might want to hurry though. Don't let your chance to see this gem be erased by a Chimerian plot. This is Toy reminding you that life sucks, but your TV shows don't have to.